Good morning. I chose a more general topic instead of focusing only on the pandemic to cover all possible future scenarios that can compromise the country's food system. While we are currently concerned with the pandemic, there are more worrisome disasters. Among these are wars, volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, and typhoons. No doubt, the most important of this is climate change. I also choose to use the lens of the food system in this talk instead of value chain. Value chain narrowly refers to stakeholders, meaning people and institutions, with emphasis on changes in monetary value of the product. On the other hand, food system refers to products, processes, stakeholders, policies, and technologies involved in producing, marketing, processing, consumption, and waste management. Both terms refer to the flow of food from producers to consumers, but the term food system is more encompassing. Thus, I prefer to use it to bring home the point that food security is a systems problem rather than mere production or merely people, institution, and money. Since our theme is the future, we need to ask, what does the future hold for the Philippines? According to Mauro Guillen, the world as we know it will begin 10 years from now, soon enough for many of us in this audience to experience. Mauro Guillen is no ordinary fortune teller. He is one of the most original thinkers at the Wharton School, where he holds the Zanzman Professorship in International Management and teaches in its flagship Advanced Management program and many other courses for executives, MBAs, and undergraduates. He bases his projection not on one single trend, such as climate change or the rise of dictators, but on the entire range of possible factors, including demography, technology, and geography. While the fate of the world is important to us, we are more interested in what the Philippines is going to be. For this, we have to rely not on a management guru like Gillian, but on the wisdom of a scholar of history and geography, Jared Diamond. In his best-selling book, Guns, Germs, and Steel, Professor Diamond made the bold statement that geography is destiny. This statement could not be truer than in the Philippines. The book, by the way, is #1 best-selling in human geography in Amazon Kindle. It won 4 international awards, including the much-coveted Pulitzer Prize. So what is it in our geography that shape our present and will determine our future food system? Number 1, the archipelagic nature of our country as it contributes to our biological, physical, and cultural diversity. This affects diversity of agriculture and food preferences and culture in general. We are a divided people in many ways than one. The archipelago also creates communication, transportation, and logistics problems. Number 2, the low ratio of land to population, which is exacerbated by a rise in sea level, population growth, and rapid urbanization. Our freshwater supply is completely dependent on rainfall trapped by watersheds or flowing into rivers and lakes. Our watersheds are disappearing with encroachment by human activity. Number 4, our country is within the Pacific Ring of Fire. Thus, volcanic eruption, such as the recent Taal eruption and earthquakes, cause localized but frequent damage. Number 5, we are in the typhoon belt. Thus, we experience a widespread and frequent damage to agriculture and infrastructure. And lastly, the West Philippine Sea is a flashpoint for the next big war. Of all human activities, those created by our dysfunctional food system have the greatest impact on the major challenges of Philippine society today. Among these are climate change, resource depletion and pollution, the triple burden of malnutrition, and increasing income inequality and rural poverty. The latter is the major factor in population movement to the cities, creating problems such as traffic, crime, and urban decay. To illustrate the problem of inequality as it relates to the existing food system, let me use the cases of coffee and chocolate, our favorite drinks. In the coffee value chain, the farmer gets only 7 cents out of $2.17 worth of coffee sold at the retail level. Think about this when you order your next Starbucks coffee. The chart shows where your money goes. In the chocolate value chain, the farmer gets only 6.6% of the retail price. Think about this next time you buy your next bar of chocolate. The case of rice and corn, our main food crops, is worse. In recent days and in some markets, farmers are selling below production cost. At least in coffee and chocolate, farmers seem to be making profits in spite of their measly share of the retail price. If we like to face these problems squarely, there is a need to answer a few inconvenient questions about the existing food system. Number 1, who benefits? Number 2, who pays and at what cost? And number 3, who is in control? No doubt, many of us in the audience recognize that these questions reflect serious problems that need solutions. For the solution, we can go back to our management guru, Mauro Guillen. Mauro Guillen advises us to think laterally, to analyze the food products or the food problem as a system rather than merely a production problem. He calls for creative and unorthodox solutions. What kind of unorthodox solution? Another intellectual, Yuval Noah Harari, has the answer. The unorthodox solution will draw on the humanity's secret of survival and dominance against all other creatures and against odds posted by the physical environment. This secret is the ability to dream, imagine, create, and act cooperatively in a flexible manner and in large numbers, according to Harari in his international best-selling book, Sapiens. The twin advice of Guillen and Harari has served as the inspiration for the team put together by the National Academy of Science and Technology in proposing a way to transform the food system in Metro Manila to the year 2050. This vision paper was prepared as an entry in a Rockefeller Foundation-sponsored Food System Vision Prize, which is still ongoing. We ended up ranked among the top 1% of more than 1,300 entries from 6 continents and more than 70 countries in open competition. I emphasize this outcome not to brag about it, but to assure our audience that our ideas do not come from thin air. The ideas in the vision have been subjected to a very rigorous peer review process by an international team of 100 referees commissioned by the Rockefeller Foundation. We competed with teams from venerable universities such as Wageningen in the Netherlands and highly capable government organizations such as the USDA from USA. We competed against very young people as well as very old ones. We competed against established institutions as well as hungry startups. I have presented the vision of feeding Metro Manila in 2050 in earlier fora before. You can read about it if you Google feeding Metro Manila in 2050. Let me just highlight 2 differences between the existing and imagined food system that are relevant to this conference. Number 1, shift in consumption to the planetary health diet. In contrast with other recommendations, this dietary recommendation takes into account not only consumer health but also environmental health. The main difference between what we eat today and the planetary health diet is diversity, as shown in the colors of food. The second difference is the shift from a linear system which externalizes waste to a circular system where waste is treated as a resource. We recognize that our most abundant unutilized resource is one we throw every day in the toilets. We need to bring this back to the food system, one way or the other, in the form of energy and plant nutrients such as phosphorus. In short, contrary to conventional food programs, we believe that the key to improving our food system is not better production, it is better consumption. We believe that the trigger for change is a change in consumer behavior, not improved crop productivity. To change food consumption habits sustainably, it has to happen in scale. We need the effective cooperation in large numbers that Harari identified as formula for humanity's success. For the purpose of this meeting, I need to emphasize that the change in consumer preference must have its parallel in the farms. The large-scale change in the dietary preference should trigger large-scale changes in the structure of farming. On the other hand, the changes in farm structure should trigger a change in farm function from a mere supplier of raw materials for industry to one that will nourish the consumer and the environment as well, while providing the farmer a comfortable income. The main element here is diversity, which will trigger efficiencies through integration and intensification. The farms will be transformed from one that creates inequality to one that will be more just to the farmer. The farms of 2050 should be completely different from the farms of today, if we have to reach 2050 at all without collapsing as a society. We call for drastic reductions in cereal grains, meat and eggs, and drastic increases in grain legumes, vegetables, starchy root and tuber crops, milk and fish. The crops academic community must make the needed adjustments in R&D investments. What else can the crops academic community do? Number one, introduce lateral thinking and training of crop scientists. Food is a product of a system rather than just a farm product. Number two, revive farming systems research. Reinvent commodity centers such as rice, coconut, sugar, tobacco, and fibers into farming system centers where the main objectives are farmer income, environmental care, and consumer health. Number three, invest in hybrid technologies such as aquaponics and floating crop farms. After all, the Philippines has more water than land. Future expansion of food production will have to be in the lakes and seas rather than in the forest. And lastly, invest in space technology for producing crops underground, inside buildings, and other protected structures, and underwater. This will allow utilization of vertical space and production closer to the kitchen, reducing cost of logistics, facilitating circularity of the food system, and ensuring food security, particularly in densely populated urban communities. I like to end this presentation by repeating two questions that kept our NAS team sleepless for months on end. 1. Is there a viable alternative to the prevailing industrial food system where farmers, consumers, and the environment suffer? Can we simply tweak the industrial food system, or do we need an entirely new system? Number 2, what might be the role of the crops academic community in creating these alternatives? In summary, Guided by a scholarly analysis of megatrends, geography, and history, the National Academy of Science and Technology multi-sectoral team created a food system vision feeding Metro Manila in 2050. The vision requires drastic restructuring of farming. Among others, it calls for greater crop diversity, 36% reduction in consumption of cereal grains, and increases in production of grain legumes, vegetable, and starchy root and tubers by 3,493, 1,440, and 77 respectively to match the requirements of the planetary health diet. The presentation calls for changes in research priorities to revolve around the idea of creating a food system that nurtures human and environmental health and improve farmers' income. And lastly, the ultimate challenge to the crops academic community is to offer alternatives to the prevailing monoculture industrial food system. Before I end my presentation, let me present our award-winning multi-sectoral team. Thank you and goodbye.